Hi,
Hello again.
we're in the Pure Worship book. David again will be on the screen, and I'll be reading from the book. We're in chapter 19. Everything will live wherever the stream goes. The subheading was, What did the visionary river mean for the exiles? So we're going to start at paragraph 4. We've already done paragraph 3.
A river of blessings. In the Bible, rivers and water are often used to picture the flow of Jehovah's life-giving blessings. Ezekiel saw such a river flowing from the temple, so the vision would have led God's people to expect that Jehovah's life-giving spiritual blessings would flow to them as long as they adhered to pure worship. They've already been in the land for 800 years at this point, so that's a blessing, isn't it? Living in the land? But they weren't faithful during almost all of that period, so there goes that point. What blessings? They would again receive spiritual instruction from the priests, and with sacrifices being offered at the temple, they could once more rest assured that atonement would be made for their sins. Thus they would be clean again, as if washed in the pure water emanating from the temple. So already it's all been spiritualized away. It's about what it signifies now, which is forgiveness and cleanness. Would there always be...
Which was the whole point of the temple worship. They always had to do that. Sacrifice and be cleaned. So what's different now?
Well, the temple's been destroyed for the 70 years that they're in exile, of course. They're not being forgiven according to your logic. But they are being forgiven because he's promising them that they will go back. So no, it's not got to do with forgiveness. It has to do with cleansing, mind you. But it has to do with the literal temple. As we're going to see later, this is all about making everything symbolic.
Yeah.
So let's see how they reason upon some of the other specifics here. Would there always be enough blessings for all? The vision soothes any such concerns by showing the miraculous expansion of the waters, increasing from a trickle to a torrent in just over a mile. That's all from Ezekiel 47, 3-5. The population and the Jews' restored homeland might grow in number, yet Jehovah's blessing would expand to meet their needs. The river was a picture of abundance and plenty. We looked last time at Zechariah and said the river's not a picture, it's a river. And the temple is a temple. And now they have life-giving water.
In Ezekiel's vision, the river flowed into the Dead Sea, reviving much of it. Notice that the waters gave life to such swarms of fish that the variety was comparable to that found in the Great Sea or the Mediterranean Sea. There was even a fishing industry thriving along the shore of the Dead Sea between the two towns, and evidently lay a considerable distance apart. The angel stated, Everything will live wherever the stream goes. Does that mean, though, that the water from Jehovah's house reached every part of the Dead Sea? No. The angel explained that some marshy regions remained beyond the reach of the life-giving waters. Those places were abandoned to salt. So the prophetic picture conveyed a reassuring promise that pure worship would revive the people, causing them to thrive. But a warning note was also sounded. Not all would accept Jehovah's blessings, nor would all be healed. Trees for food and healing. What of those trees along the riverbanks? They add to the beauty of the picture, do they not? They also add to its meaning. Ezekiel and his countrymen surely enjoyed thinking of the delicious fruit that such trees would provide, a new crop every month. That appealing picture further reassured them that Jehovah would feed them spiritually. And what else? Note that the leaves of those trees will serve for healing. Jehovah knew that, above all, the returning exiles would need spiritual healing, and he promised to provide just that. How he did so was discussed in other restoration prophecies, as we have noted in chapter 9 of this publication.
However, as we also discussed in chapter 9, the returning exiles experienced only a limited fulfillment of such prophecies. It was the people themselves who limited that fulfillment. How could Jehovah bless them fully when backsliding, disobedience, and neglect of pure worship so often prevailed among them? Faithful ones were pained and disappointed by the conduct of their fellow Jews. However, loyal worshippers of Jehovah knew that his promises never fail. They always come true, and they urge us here to read Joshua 23, verse 14, which we will do. Hence, one day, Ezekiel's vision would have a greater fulfillment, but when? Oh, they ask the question when, but we have to ask the question where, because we've made the point already that they've already decided before we started reading today that, well, they must be symbolic, these prophecies. They have to be pictures. And in the footnote, which we didn't look at last time, if you look at the footnote to the paragraphs we read last time, first of all, we noticed they've changed the text of it.
Yeah, so on the screen, which we have the version that you can find at jw.org, right? It's longer than the one that I have in the hard copy of the book.
But the substance of it remains the same, namely that, well, this can't be literal because the topography, the geography that's mentioned in here, it just won't work. This temple, river, direction, size of it won't work in the present geography and topography of the...
As if they can't change. And if there's earthquakes and stuff, I think they will change.
Well, this is not about just earthquakes, though, is it? If you read the prophet Joel, or the prophet Isaiah 24, or the Ezekiel 38, Zechariah 14, if you read any of these texts, and they've listed these here, if you read any of them in the context, you now realize that we're talking about a time when mountains are being thrown down to the earth. So this is all irrelevant, really. And is it a deliberate ignorance of the context? Well, it might be. But I dare say the reading staff here and the people who are writing this stuff, the research staff, I should say, it seems like they're improvising. Whatever we can say that will get us off the hook for taking these promises of God literally.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to the verse they've selected, and by the way, you've already missed one major point, that it's not pure worship, that it's not coming from God's organization, this river of life that you're supposed to take advantage of, which then becomes about you connecting to an organization which itself is pure so that you can derive the pure waters from it so that you can have everlasting life. What did Jesus say about all of this? Well, John 3, you must be born again. It's the Spirit that gives life.
Yeah.
The flesh is no use at all, and that includes the flesh of the governing body.
Because wherever the temples, whenever they had temples, it wasn't pure. That's why they had to give sacrifices, because they were not pure. They couldn't worship purely.
Yeah.
They had to worship acceptably, offer for their sins. So that was a constant thing.
And in this new temple that we're reading about here, there's still sacrifice for sins. There's an altar that's huge to tell you something about, even during the millennium, apparently, there's going to be a necessity for us to take advantage of that. So there's no pure worship. There's only acceptable worship.
Yeah.
And to add to the John point, not only does Jesus say in John 3, you must be born again, but he adds to it in chapter 4, talking by a well to a woman who's a sinner. The text acknowledges that he knows she's a sinner, and she's amazed that he knows.
Yeah.
And what does he tell her? That if you drink the water I'm willing to give you, it'll become a well within you, bubbling up unto eternal life. So the life is coming from the Spirit, which only Christ can give us. It's not coming from a connection to an organization that you call pure worship.
Mm-hmm. So they made that point about the salt. They had a footnote about that too. They take it to mean as a negative. The fact that there are marshes, a warning and a negative that not everyone will accept. No, salt is not viewed as a bad thing in Scripture. It's a good thing.
It's a blessing.
And we need salt. We need it for preserving. So The fact that he leaves a portion of it like that is a part of the blessing.
Part of the blessing. Yeah,
not,
but
not
then
a negative.
And there's where you need Bible scholars to basically tell you the information that the salt is a blessing, and it's a preservative, but it doesn't give life. It preserves.
Yeah.
It preserves what you need for life, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing missing from here, you've already mentioned that not the Dead Sea, because there were no fish in that; they couldn't live. But there were fish in the Sea of Galilee, so you could get the fish and you could preserve the fish with the benefits coming from one lake, Galilee, and coming from the Dead Sea with the benefits of the salt there. You could have life.
Yeah.
That's all missing from here too. But the big issue really gets down to Joshua 23:14, because what you want them to read, what do you want the Jehovah's Witnesses to read is one verse again.
Yeah.
Joshua 23:14. Look at the context though, and you'll notice right away this is not about you. Who is it about?
Yeah. So I mean, the statement, Jehovah, his promises never fail. Well, that's true, but you're not paying attention to who he's talking to and what he's talking about.
Which is not the when, it is the where though.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that. Let's read it from the New World Translation then. Joshua 23:14 to 16.
Okay. So the 14, I'll isolate so you know. 14 is what they told you to read. Now look, I am about to die, and you well know with all your heart and with all your soul that not one word out of all the good promises that Jehovah your God has spoken to you has failed. They have all come true for you. Not one word of them has failed. So you have to think, well, who is he talking to?
And you counted in your New World Translation 6 U's here.
6 U's in that one verse.
And you here would simply be Joshua's generation, because it obviously hadn't had an application to their immediate ancestors who had died in the wilderness, but it did apply to them.
And it's that people, not all people.
Not all people who become believers ever.
Yeah.
But then there's a proof in the next 2 verses, which they don't reference, that we're talking not just about one generation of Israel in the land. We're talking about forever, really. So let's read it from their version and see what they have to deliver.
But just as all the good promises that Jehovah your God has spoken to you have come upon you, so Jehovah will bring upon you all the calamities that he promised, and will annihilate you from this good land that Jehovah your God has given you, if you violate the covenant of Jehovah your God that he commanded you to keep, and if you go and serve other gods and bow down to them. Then Jehovah's anger will blaze against you, and you will quickly perish from the good land that he has given you.
I count 9 more U's here, so a total of about 15 in 3 verses. And U is now expanded, though, hasn't it, from Joshua's generation, who have seen the promises fulfilled, for them anyway. Now U's expanded to future generations who will not be faithful to God, as the generation was under Joshua, with that lead of Joshua.
And that leads to them like being taken off the land. But it's land. They're taken away from the land. That's the exile.
Right. So the promises of blessing in the land have been fulfilled. Now the promises he's saying of them being taken out of the land will be fulfilled.
If
but
they
that
violate
what does that imply, though, about all the promises of restoration?
That they'll also come true. About the land and the people.
That's what I started to notice.
So restoration is not just a word that has no meaning to it. Worship. No, it's restoration of the things they had. They were given land. They weren't given spiritual land. They were given land.
And when does the pure worship happen then? Well, it doesn't happen until the very end. Because even when the temple is restored, as Ezekiel 40 to 48 demonstrates, and the land is redistributed, sinners are still living in it who need atonement. But one day, after those promises are fulfilled, all of the promises of God will come to fulfillment, and we won't be sinners anymore, and there'll be no one unrighteous in the land. I was starting to realize all of this and putting this together with the promises made through the prophets. That's the picture that forms in in your eyes. The pure worship, as you just said, can't be restored because it really never was there.
Yeah.
It can only be the ultimate or eternal purpose of God for the future. But that's on the other side of grace, the age of grace we're now in.
Yeah.
With when Israel and Gentiles are only here by God's grace and only become believers by God's grace, but they're never faithful, they're never true to the religion that's revealed to them, are they?
No. So you have to read Joshua as a book to Israel, about Israel. You know, promises to them and about them. You can't just apply it to anybody that you want to.
It's very plain then why they can only select one verse from here to make a general point about God's promises being trusted. Yes, but to whom? And not only when, primarily where. Because if you don't notice the geography and you don't notice what God says about the geography and the topography and how everything will change one day, but the biggest thing that will change is the hearts of people. The hearts of Israel will be converted to the Messiah.
Yeah. And this is just some specific promises given to specific people. Other promises are given to specific people too,
Such
that
as
Israel can't have. You know, like, so I think we seem to think everyone has to get exactly the same thing.
the same chance, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The principle of election is, of course, completely thrown off the table by that idea, isn't it? What's the link?
The link is from your series of James Orr on theology, right? This one is on the gravity of sin and the necessity of sacrifice.
It would be good to link the James Orr playlist too, wouldn't it? I think we should do that.
Okay.
The James Orr playlist is just James Orr, and it's a wonderful basic book of biblical theology. It'll bless you.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Okay.